Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second ever edition of the Daily Recap video version. My name is Jason Butt. I'm your host for this daily episode, recapping Georgia's news and notes from the day before, offering a little analysis, a little opinion. Let's get this show on the road. We'll just jump right into it now that it's game week. South Carolina is up next on the schedule with the Bulldogs beating their SEC slate this weekend. First, we got to update you on some injuries. Obviously, that's a big deal in this sport of football that we all know and love. Kirby Smart updated the media today, or I should say on Monday, on two injuries to a pair of receivers. A.D. Mitchell, who went down against Samford with an ankle injury. He gave an update. He's hopeful. Kirby Smart is hopeful that A.D. Mitchell will be able to play. He did not practice Monday, however, but he did say team trainer, team all-world everything, Ron Corson, is, quote, optimistic, but you know how that goes. It's more where, quote, parentheses, A.D. Mitchell goes and where he's at. So we'll see. This is going to be something that will probably be a game-time decision. It is worth noting that early in the week, the fact that Kirby Smart did use the word hopeful, you like to think that there's a little bit of optimism there. You can't ever be too sure because Kirby Smart does like to guard the secrets there a little bit, as everybody knows about Fort Butts-Mehre under his leadership of the Bulldogs. So A.D. Mitchell, game time decision. Right now, we'll see how that progresses as the week goes on. Nothing too much to glean except for the fact that they're feeling good about it. The training staff's feeling good about it, but you never know. The other receiver that Kirby Smart gave an update on is Arian Smith. Now, when Arian Smith went down with an ankle injury this preseason, there was a lot of people who kind of thought or assumed that this would be a bad thing and that he was a long-term thing, I should say, and that he might not even play this season. Well, the good news is Kirby Smart, we've talked about this on the dog vent for a while now, so I don't think any of our subscribers are surprised by this. But Kirby Smart gave a pretty positive update about Arian Smith. He said, quote, yeah, Arian is coming back. He's been able to do some weight-bearing running. He's been hitting some good speeds. We don't know when he's going to be back. It's doubtful he's back this week, but he's back running, and he's not 100%. But I'm excited for what he's been able to do. He's not cutting and breaking. He's getting better, and you can see it in his eyes. He's getting healthier. We just got no idea when he's going to be back. So, obviously, don't know, but you got to feel good there. Now, Arian Smith offers that game wrecker over the top. Ladd McConkey has a little bit of that. But everybody else, A.D. Mitchell is definitely a guy who can win balls in coverage. He's definitely a jump ball guy. But Arian Smith is that guy who, you send him up the seam, you send him on a go route out wide. You put him in the slot, you get a little kind of a sluggo, depending on where you line him up. This is a guy that absolutely can just take the top off the defense. Sorry to use that cliche today, but that's the truth with him. And so if they can get Arian Smith back, oh man, that would just be tremendous. Another tremendous weapon for Stetson Bennett as this team continues its quest for a second consecutive national title. Okay, moving on. Kirby Smart was, of course, asked about Georgia's #1 ranking in the AP poll. I mentioned yesterday I was somewhat surprised that they were ranked #1 and jumped Alabama in the AP poll. The AP poll voters obviously were not impressed by Alabama's performance against Texas. I wasn't either, but still didn't think it would happen. I digress. Great for Georgia, in terms of marketing. Not great in the sense of Kirby Smart doesn't want this #1 ranking getting to their heads. So, of course, when he was asked, he said, it's irrelevant. I'm a lot more worried about how we execute a combo block than I am worried about where we're ranked, and hopefully the kids feel the same way. That is quite possibly the perfect response to a question such as that when it comes to being ranked #1, because if you do let something like that percolate and get in these guys' head and you don't really squash it, especially out in public, I think you will have some guys who are like, oh, man, we're that good. We're #1 in the country. The #1 team didn't even lose, and we still jumped them. You start feeling this way, especially after a performance against Samford where the offense didn't play as well or up to their potential like they did again a week before against a much better opponent in Oregon. So Kirby Smart's going to use every opportunity this week to try and diminish the fact that they're number one in the nation. I don't blame him for doing that. When you're dealing with 18 to 24-year-olds, you have to kind of take them down a little bit. This is not the NFL by any means yet. Nobody is above any sort of criticism yet. So, good for him for saying that. I think that's a good message to send to these players at this stage. And clearly, in terms of the public messaging, there's got to be guys in there who are buying the hype. And yes, they are the best team in college football, or at least one of the two best teams in college football, I should say. But publicly, they're saying the right thing. Cedric Van Pran, he was asked about it on Monday as well. He said, "I don't want to get into that, and I want to stress to the guys not to get into that. That is something that changes every week. One week we may be number one. The next week it may change. The thing for us is to make sure we uphold the Georgia standard and make sure we play the way we need to win games. And ultimately, that's the most important part, because if you're number one right now, but you don't win the games that are on the schedule up ahead, you're not going to be number one when it matters, which is at the very last poll, which is after the national championship, which Georgia was able to accomplish a year ago. So you would hope that, they learned something from that process last year, from the processes even from prior years, when ever since Georgia's kind of climbed this mountain to be a regular mainstay in the college football playoff conversation. So kudos to the staff for making sure that the priorities matter, and that nobody's getting bogged down and into some of that outside noise. Also on UGAsports.com, I really want to point you guys to some excellent stories that we have. Jed May, he wrote about how Georgia's run game is still in a great position. It's interesting right now because, the Bulldogs are averaging 129.5 yards a game. And I think it's something like 4.5. I don't have that number right now in front of me. I think it's 4.5 or 4.6 yards per carry. Those aren't bad numbers. However, it's not really what we've seen at Georgia maybe in recent years, especially, you think back to what Nick Chubb and Sony Michel were able to do, what DeAndre Swift was able to do. But I think it's been since DeAndre Swift, they haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher. But as you've noticed, here's the thing. As you've noticed since really, Todd Munkins came, and really toward the end of even James Coley for that matter, this team has started to progressively become more of a pass-first offense, and you're really seeing that right now. So when people are I do have a hard time with this criticism. There's I think, a lot of stuff's fair game. But I have a hard time with this one because when you watch Georgia, especially in these two games, like, it's clear what the MO is. They want to be an aggressive offense, throwing the ball. They want Stetson Bennett to distribute the ball to all the playmakers he has on the outside. They want to use the running backs in the passing game. Kenny McIntosh is out here going for over 100 receiving yards in game one. I think they're running a lot of the quick receiving stuff as sort of an extension to the run game. I think when it comes to maybe some of the criticism I've heard and seen so far, when it comes to the run game and not producing the same type of numbers, I don't know if that's necessarily warranted at this time. I just think that you have a quarterback who's thrown for 668 yards in his first two games of the season, and 368 of those were against Oregon, where he didn't even finish the game because they were winning so big. So, I think Jed May hits the nail on the head here. I think Kirby Smart had a great explanation about how, the numbers may not be what they were, but at the same time, that's really not how the offense is dictated at the present time. So, it's a pretty good explanation right there. Blaine Gilmer, moving on. Blaine Gilmer, he spoke with Buford athlete KJ Bolden. And I don't want to give anything away on this one, obviously, but I want to point you there to our website because he discussed where things where things stand with Georgia following his recent visit. Obviously, he's a priority target for the Bulldogs and somebody that Kirby Smart and company would really, 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 really want to get in this. In this 2024 recruiting class. He's obviously a year out, so a junior right now in high school. Okay, so we got through the news. Let's get into something that's kind of become an interest of mine in the last few years. I've really take into not just sports betting. Obviously, betting on sports is fun as long as you do it responsibly. I want to point that out. Do it responsibly, and as long as you do it, within your means, and you're not just doing it carelessly. You need to have a plan. You need to even have a strategy, and you got to know you're going to lose. Whatever money you put up, you got to know and be okay with losing it. So, early in the week, I like to look at odds early in the week and see where things, see where Vegas initially has a game. And then, through the week, and I typically don't like to bet on games early in the week. I just like to monitor and see how things go. I like to kind of do my research after the fact. Now, Georgia, South Carolina, Georgia opening as a 24.5-point favorite. My first instinct is that I like the dogs. I like the dogs covering 24.5. I think the line would have been bigger if the offense would have lived up to the potential against Samford. I think that might be scaring the books right now. The fact that, they had a big wild win over over Oregon in week 1, but then they come out flat against Samford. I think this might be one of those times where I actually do pull the trigger and I play something on Georgia, early this week, see if I can still get it at minus 24.5. Because I wouldn't be surprised if we get into Thursday, Friday, if it's still around that number, maybe 25, that it starts shooting up. South Carolina's dealing with some injuries. Georgia, even if A.D. Mitchell's unable to go, you still like their passing game with Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington. You still like Dylan Bell. Actually, I liked how he looked out there. You like Kenny McIntosh is essentially, the first, at times the first option, but really kind of the second to third option in this passing game at this point. So I don't know. I just got a feeling it's going to be a lot like last year. I'm not going to put in my for sure prediction until Friday when we all do, but I'm very, very interested in how this line opened because I was thinking it would be more around 27, 28, and that may be where it ends up when all things are said and done. But so 24.5. If I'm you, if you have some money and you want to put and you like betting on the Bulldogs, I think this is one to pull the trigger on. I know last week Georgia didn't cover. I think they bounced back. I think and not to mention they have the Kirby Smart message factor where he's ripping everybody in that locker room. So I want to go ahead and throw that out there. I think that's kind of some interesting an interesting look at Vegas right now and kind of where they see the Bulldogs. And I think that Samford game is rubbing off on them a little bit. So, okay, we're about at the 13-minute mark. Let's close. So what I'm going to do every episode now is I'm going to close with, it could be Georgia, it could be not Georgia. Today, for this morning, fresh on my mind is the Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks Monday night game. So we're going to call this segment Butting In. We're going to do a play on my unfortunate last name that I decided to never change, and I guess I won't at this stage of my life. It just is what it is. So Butting In, we'll make good use of it. This is where I'll offer a little bit more of an opinion, and so obviously later in the week it'll definitely be more Georgia focused. But with the Monday night game, I have to say something. One thing that never ceases to amaze me at the highest level of sports is how poor games continue to be managed. It's you think that you're paying these guys millions and millions of dollars, and they have staffs that are getting paid. Some of the assistants are getting paid 7 figures. Most are 6 figures at least. You're getting paid a lot of money to coach a game, and they can't get the basics right. If you're Nathaniel Hackett, I don't know how you go to bed, after your day at work, which, I get it. It's in front of everybody. It's in the spotlight. People not that he cares about anybody like me, but the national media is going to crush him throughout this day. The local media is going to crush him throughout this week. If you're a football coach in today's day and age of football, you can't just with 5 minutes left in a game, you can't afford to not be aggressive anymore. You can't just assume you can take the air out of the ball, especially against a great defense like that. You got to go down. You got to go try to score points. You don't settle for a 64-yard field goal. You don't let all that time run off the clock the way it did. You go down, because here's the thing: the games are all about possessions. Their defense was playing well. If they stay aggressive and they end up having to punt, or they do attempt a long field goal and there's still time, they can still get a possession possibly. At the end of the game, I just, when you play that passively, more than likely, they say play not to lose, you usually lose, and that's what happened to the Denver Broncos. First-year head coach. Hopefully, he learns from that mistake. Unbelievable. I haven't seen a game that poorly managed in quite some time. Probably since, the one that stands out top of my head is when Bill Belichick went for it on, was it 4th and 1 from his own 29, I think, against the Colts, and the Colts ended up winning because that was maybe an incredibly dumb thing to do in that moment. But, that Denver game, they're paid a lot of money to do the basics right, and they didn't do it. So Russell Wilson goes in and is unable to knock off his former team. Denver deserved to lose that game wholeheartedly all the way through. 3 times in the red zone, no touchdowns. So that is a wrap on the daily recap. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to try to continue to make this as entertaining as possible, maybe add some things here and there. Obviously, it's a learning process as we go, but I can't thank you enough for taking the time this morning to spend it with me, talking the dogs, and we will see you again tomorrow morning. Y'all have a great day, and until then,